Good morning. The birds are so loud today, and the blossom that you would have seen just before in next door neighbour's garden is blossoming. Blossom is blossoming and spring is coming, and this makes my heart happy. It's really foggy this morning, which is also very, very beautiful. It's nearing the end of February as I'm filming this, and I thought I would do a reading vlog because I just remembered that in a video that I did at the end of January talking about what I was going to be reading in February and my February reading challenge, which was to read a whole bookshelf on my bookcase. We'll talk about how successful that was in my wrap up. I said one of the reasons I wanted to do that challenge was to help me get out of a reading slump, which it kind of did, actually, is doing. And also so that I would film more reading vlogs because I enjoy filming those. But it's the end of the month and I didn't film any reading vlogs about this particular challenge. So I'm going to rectify that today. I finished reading Death in Her Hands by Ottessa Moshfegh this morning in bed. And I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's my favourite of hers so far. She writes very unlikable characters, and this one is twisted in a way that I could get behind more than My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which I enjoyed but found infuriating, deliberately so. It's supposed to be infuriating, but this one is more intriguing, which I preferred, and I'll talk about it in my wrap up. Today I'm going to be working on World Book Day stuff. World Book Day last year in 2020 was my last in-person event, and so this time last year I was getting ready to go to Bradford to talk to over 2,000 children over the course of a day. Can you imagine meeting that many people in one day at the moment? Even seeing that many people from a distance, I just can't. So I have online events this year, as does everybody. But one public thing that I'm doing is Changing Faces UK, who are an organisation that I have worked with before, have asked if I will film a video for them talking about my favourite books that centre disfigurement and disability. So I'm doing that as a favour to them and uploading that on World Book Day. And by the time this video goes up, that will be up. In fact, I think I'm going to upload this video on World Book Day. So I will link that in the description box down below if you would like to go check it out, because I'm not going to upload it to my YouTube channel. I'm going to put it on IGTV, I think, because I want to do a more in-depth video talking about more book recommendations to do with disfigurement and disability. So if you would like that secret video in the meantime, it will be linked in the description box. So today I'm going to be working on World Book Day stuff, and that's just going to be me mostly sitting at my desk. So I'll show you all of the stuff in between. The other day I was watching some of my old weekly vlogs, like a week in the life of a freelance person in publishing, a writer, and it made me feel tired just watching them. One of the vlogs was a week where one day I went round to Jean's house at 7:30 in the morning so that we could do an Instagram live for a film company about a bookish film that was coming out. And from there I went to the London Book Fair, where I was running 6 different events and then attending a poetry symposium, followed by meetings. Didn't get home until 10 o'clock at night, and then the next morning was on a 5 a.m. train to Saltburn to run some workshops. I am still busy at the moment. Work is busy, but obviously it's a different kind of busy. There are pros and cons to both of those things, and obviously outside of just busyness, massive cons at the moment to pretty much everything else. But it was so strange watching some of those vlogs and thinking that, touch wood, life will go back to being like that at some point. So yeah, I will not show you some of the work that I'm doing today because, as I said, I'm just sitting at my desk, but I'll show you all the bits in between. And I also need to do some housework today. I need to hoover, and I'm going to do some laundry. Exciting times. And I ordered myself some daffodils because they are happy flowers, and I've treated myself to some daffodils which arrived yesterday. So they've been decontaminating in the hallway. They arrived in water, so they will be fine, and I'll put them in vases and put them around the flat. Plus I plan to go for a walk this afternoon, and I'll take you on that trip as well. I have other things planned for this evening, but this just feels like a list of things that's going to be in this video. And save it, Jen, it's a surprise. Let them watch the video. Okay, I'll stop talking. I'm going to get ready. Okay, I don't know where the time goes. It's 4 hours later. It's just gone 1 o'clock. I have wolfed down some lunch and I'm going to go and stretch my legs to make sure that I see some sunshine today. But before I go outside, I quickly made this, which is some enriched dough. It's the same recipe that I use for making cinnamon buns, which I've made in vlogs before. But instead of rolling it out and covering it in sugar and cinnamon, I'm going to put chocolate on it instead. And instead of cutting up into buns, I'm going to make one pleated loaf and make chocolate babka. So I'm going to cover this with a tea towel, and by the time I get back from my walk, it should have risen. Fingers crossed. Does anybody else find themselves hugging their hot water bottle like it's an animal? I feel like I do that quite a lot. It is the next morning. Hi. I was going to film this segment last night, but then I was just really sleepy, so I'm filming it this morning instead. Last night, Mr. M and I played some Hanamakoji after we finished work, and we also made a vegan chicken curry that came with our weekly gusto. It was a type of vegan chicken we hadn't tried before. It was called naked something. I would Google it, but I'm just worried about Googling like naked vegan or naked chicken. Like what's gonna come up? Shall I try? Pray for me. It's called Naked Glory. There we go. I will insert a picture of that curry on the screen, though it's kind of hard to make that look appetizing. It was nice. I think the texture of the chicken wasn't necessarily my favorite, but it had crispy onions in it, which is always good, isn't it? So after that, I decided to read 3 books, not in their entirety. Who do you think I am? I decided to pick 3 books from the bookshelf that I'm challenging myself to read this month. And I wanted to read samples from those and talk to you about them, which I'm going to do. And then I thought we could do some book shopping together because I thought that that would be fun as well. So firstly, I picked up Tirzah and the Prince of Crows, which I've been reading for a while. So I'd already read the beginning of this one. It's by Deborah Davies. I really loved her book, which I think came out 7 years ago, which I read when I just started BookTube, called Reasons She Goes to the Woods, which is a series of vignettes. It's very poetic. It's told from the point of view of a young girl who embodies that rhyme. There was a little girl who had a little curl right in the middle of her forehead, and when she was good, she was very, very good, and when she was bad, she was horrid. It's very dark and twisted, trigger warnings for sexual assault. I just really loved the way that that book was written, and I was very excited to see that she had a new novel coming out, and as you can see, it is quite a big one. But I've decided to DNF this one, not because I think that it's a bad book at all, but because it just feels very, very similar to Reasons She Goes to the Woods, except this one is just much more narrative driven, and I much preferred the tone of her previous work. And I also felt I could tell what was going to happen in this book, so I did skip to the end to see if I was right, and I was right. So I just don't think that this one is necessarily for me, so I'm going to pass this one on to somebody else. And then I read the beginning of these two books. So this is The Beauty of Your Face by Sahar Mustafah, and Kendra has talked about this book a lot, and I will link Kendra's channel in the description box down below. This is about Afaf Rahman, who is the headmistress of, what is the school called? Nuruddin School for Girls, which is a Muslim school for girls in Chicago. And I wasn't sure about it when I first started reading it. I've only read the very beginning, the first chapter, so I mean, I haven't read much yet, but just at the very beginning, it felt like so much exposition. Afaf is talking about what she can see in every minute detail, and it felt very cinematic in a way. She begins on a phone call to a parent who's complaining about the school curriculum, and then she's walking down the corridors to prayer, and people keep on trying to get things from her, asking for help, asking questions, and she is, you know, being a headmistress. She is delegating, she is doing all of the things, she is juggling everything, and as she is walking past things, she's telling you the history of what she's seeing. So she's saying, this is this thing, it was built in this time, this is how long this school has been here, this is how we got funding to begin. And it just felt a little bit information heavy. You know, why are you telling me all of these things instead of slipping them more casually into the book later? It just felt quite heavy-handed. But as I was reading it, I then thought, actually, this also reads like a true crime retelling, you know, where someone is trying to recall the specifics of a very important day that perhaps didn't seem important when you were living it, remembering all of the inconsequential little details that haunt you later because something terrible is about to happen. So once I thought about it more in that context, I was definitely more drawn in. And it is teasing you. It's because it is stringing out all of these details, and you know, which I haven't told you, which is perhaps not helpful, on the blurb it says this is a day about a school shooting. So you know that everything is about to go to hell in this school. Something terrible is going to happen, and all of these boring everyday things that she's talking about are going to pale in insignificance in the light of what's about to happen next. So that does also add tension. The chapter ends when she can hear the beginning of the gunfire. At first she thinks that it's a prank and that it's not real, and then she hears more and she calls for the security guard. And I've looked at the very beginning of the next chapter and we've jumped back to 1976. So I think we're going to go back in time and see her upbringing and how she became a headmistress of the school. So I'm really excited to read more of that. I very much enjoyed it. And then I was pleasantly surprised by the beginning of this book here, which is The Paper Man by Gallagher Lawson. I bought this a long time ago. I think it was in one of Christopher Alonso's videos when he was talking about magical realism, and I bought it because I love magical realism. But what I hadn't realised reading the blurb, it's about a paper man who's going on a journey to the big city. He's running away from home. Yes, he is made out of paper, and yes, that is unusual. What I hadn't really considered was that this is using magical realism as a metaphor for disability and visual difference. At least it appears to be from the first chapter that I have read, and that excites me very much. As I have spoken about before, I am very passionate about the representation of disability and disfigurement in books, and in a real sense as well. You know, we need the real lived experiences, especially own voices regarding disfigurement and disability. But also I am intrigued by magical realism as a means to discuss visual difference, disfigurement, disability, via metaphor, extended metaphor. And let me find you an example of that. His name is Michael. He's on a bus and he's sitting next to a man who's wearing an eye patch. So he thinks perhaps he's in safe hands because this man has a visual difference too, though he starts to wonder that maybe it's just an injury that he's had recently and he's not somebody who is used to having a visual difference, and so perhaps he is not in the safe hands that he thought he was in. So this man who's sitting next to him asks him if people in the countryside where Michael is from all look like him. "I don't look like them and they don't look like me," Michael said. The man continued to stare, but a cruel little smile rose on his lips. This confused Michael. After all, the man himself sported an eye patch, so why would he stare as though he didn't understand? Michael pulled the curtain to hide again in the shade. There was an accident, he finally said. I didn't always look this way. So what happened? The man raised his hand to touch Michael's face. Michael leaned against the wall, realising how trapped he was in this small space. So I will be reading the rest of these and I will talk about them in my wrap up. And then, as I said before, I would like to do some book shopping with you, because when I was clearing out my my desk drawer the other day, I remembered that I have this, which is a voucher to purchase 2 copies of Persephone books, which I got for my birthday last year. And I wanted to go to Persephone Books in person to purchase these, but I don't know when that's going to happen. So I thought we could look through their catalogue together and I could decide or preempt which ones I may wish to purchase with my book voucher. Persephone Books, I've mentioned them before, but if you're not familiar, they are an independent press who mainly publish work by women that's been forgotten about. They reissue them, they publish them in beautiful grey editions. I will do a cutaway so that you can see the pile of books of theirs that I own. I'm often asked which book of theirs I would recommend starting with, and I think my favourite is Doreen by Barbara Noble, which is about a young girl called Doreen who is sent away for evacuation during the Second World War, and I really, really love that one. It's all about family dynamics, and yeah, it's great. How should we do this? I would tell you what, I will open my computer and I'll record the screen and I'll insert that on the screen and I will do a voiceover of what I'm looking at. Let's do that. I don't know how to use their gift vouchers actually online, like if I can do that. Maybe I have to call them? I'm not sure. Let's see what their website says. Okay, it says on their website that they are open on the weekdays, but sadly no one can go in, of course, but they are still posting out books by mail. This is a beautiful illustration of their shop. Everything about what they do is so aesthetically pleasing. Okay, let's click on books. Oh, so here are their latest books. Let's look at those. This one is called Random Commentary and it's by Dorothy Whipple. I have one of her books on my bookcase, but I haven't read it yet. So this is a short volume which consists of extracts from the diaries and notebooks of Dorothy Whipple. But it says that it is a book which will only be enjoyed by someone who has already read at least some of her novels. So that is not me. So let's go back. The New Magdalene. Well, this is by Wilkie Collins, so one of the few men that they publish. Wilkie Collins wrote The Woman in White and The Moonstone. So this one is a sensation novel. Sensation fiction is populated by men who cannot bear loud noise and women who cannot digest cake. On its pages you will meet wives fixated on vengeance and husbands shamed by murder. Okay, so it says, as well as that, this is revealing about mid-19th century attitudes and moral values. It is about a fallen woman. It is about a sex worker. Okay, so there is that one. And then the third one is English Climate Wartime Stories. Oh, by Sylvia Townsend Warner, who I have never read before, but I've heard such amazing things. So this is a collection of 22 stories dating from 1940 to 1946. And these stories are set in the market towns and villages of southern England's countryside, set during the Second World War. Oh, and look. The stories too stand alongside many others of Persephone's World War II novels, like Noel Streatfeild's Saplings and Barbara Noble's Doreen. And I just said that Doreen was my favourite Persephone book. I have read Saplings by Noel Streatfeild, but I was slightly disappointed. It was okay, but because I loved her fiction for children when I was a child, Ballet Shoes and all of that, I really wanted to love her grown-up book, and I didn't love it so much, which was a shame. Let's look at what categories they do. Ooh, adultery, childhood cookery books, diaries, education, gender and race, grandmothers. Oh, there are so many. Ooh, science fiction. Let's look at that. I've read both of these. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. I haven't read the Hopkins manuscript. This is another one of the books that they published by a man. This is by R.C. Sheriff. This is about the moon colliding with the Earth. And the Victorian Chase-Long was a time travel novel. Someone travelling back to the 1800s from the early 1900s. And it reminded me a lot of The Yellow Wallpaper, but it wasn't one of my favourites that they publish. What shall we have a look at here? Thrillers. Let's look at thrillers. You know, Still Missing is one that I've picked up several times when I've gone into their shop before. It was first published in 1981. That's late. Is it a novel? Is it a detective story? Can those not be the same things? It is in fact written in the spare, direct style of a thriller. There is no way to define this extraordinary book, except perhaps by quoting the opening section. You could hardly get to age 34 without learning something about loss. By 34, you're bound to have lost your Swiss Army knife, your best friend from 4th grade, your chance to be centre forward on the starting team, your hope of Latin prize, quite a few of your illusions, and certainly, somewhere along the line, some significant love. Susan Selke had in fact recently lost an old battle for her marriage to the man she was in love with, and with it many ancillary dreams of more babies and of holding his hand in the dark when they were old. That's a very good opening passage. When Alex disappears, Susan, his mother, doesn't just lose a little boy. She loses the most essential part of herself, a piece of her own personhood. You know, it may be time for me to pick up this one because I have literally picked it up in the shop, as I said on many occasions. So perhaps I'll go for that one, and also English Climate Wartime Stories. I'm going to have a think on it though. I'll link their website in the description box down below if you would like to peruse as well. I had better get out of bed and get ready for the day and crack on with work. I hope that you have enjoyed this vlog. A little bit of everything, pretty much. A bit of baking, a bit of reading, a bit of cleaning. How satisfying is a speed clean? I just think it is really, really satisfying. I hope you're all having a good week. Let me know what you're reading in a comment down below. If you're new, please do subscribe. It would be lovely to have you around, and I will speak to you later. Lots of love. Bye.